Chapter 12. It is what it is. The baby was 1 month old and I was trying to get back to normal, which was very hard considering I had gained more than 100 pounds during my pregnancy. I lost 6 pounds, but my body was a mess. I was looking forward to going back to work, which was still weeks away, and feeling good about myself. One evening, Kevin's cell phone was ringing. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. That wasn't unusual because in the game we're in, business doesn't really jump off until the wee hours. Actually, business gets done 24 hours a day. That phone call could have been someone calling from the tunnel, a New York City nightclub, saying some rapper just left the club and careened off the West Side Highway. And this was info that I could have needed when I cracked the mic for 5 o'clock. Cell phones stay on because you never know. 2 o'clock here is just 11 in Los Angeles, and some shit could have just jumped off that I need for my show. It wasn't unusual for the cell phone to ring. Kevin looked at it and ignored it the first time. It rang about 20 seconds later, and Kevin picked it up and hung up. That was a little unusual. It rang again. He did the same thing. It kept ringing, and finally he picked up the phone and left the room. Now, it wasn't unusual for him to take the phone into the bathroom. Kevin has a very Ja Rule-esque, gravelly voice that's loud even when he's trying to whisper, even when he's being pleasant. So he would often take the phone into the bathroom so as not to disturb me. But he took the phone and went to the guest bedroom on the other side of the house. Now that was unusual. It made me get up to find out what the fuck was going on. I got out of bed and followed him quietly to the guest bedroom. I was curious. And I had no idea. I swear to God, I had no idea. I stood in the doorway and listened for a few seconds before I got an idea. I don't remember the content of the conversation, but all I remember is Kevin saying this woman's name. It was a nasty conversation, one of these bitch please conversations. And he said her name. Mind you, my husband is not the kind to call someone by their first name, ever. He oftentimes calls me yo, or one of the affectionate names he has for me. For him to be calling another woman by her name led me to believe that this person was closer than just a business associate. There was something deeper going on. Well, duh, this was a bitch, and they were arguing. I must have stood there and listened to about 45 seconds of that conversation before I walked in and snatched the cell phone out of his hand. What the fuck is going on? I said in a nasty low growl. I didn't want to wake up the baby, so I tried to keep it down. But I felt like I was having an out of body experience. I felt like whatever he said, I knew what the fuck was going on. In those 45 seconds, my woman's intuition kicked in, and I knew he was on the phone with a lover. I felt hurt. I felt like a fool for asking what the fuck was going on. And I felt totally out of my mind. Nothing had prepared me for this. No matter how many Jerry Springer or Ricky Lake shows I saw, no matter how many Cosmo articles I read, nothing prepared me for this. Nothing. And from the time I asked that stupid question until he actually parted his lips to answer me seemed like an eternity. But actually, he answered right away. He spilled the beans. I didn't talk to the girl. I hung up on her because I knew the affair was his fault. He's the married man with a child. He could have said no to the affair. I took the phone and threw it over the staircase to the first floor. Now, somehow, I had the presence of mind not to throw the phone out the window. I didn't want to pay for a new window. I didn't throw it against the walls because gouges in the wall are not cool. I didn't want to break the ladro or the china and crystal I have throughout the house. I was angry and I wanted to throw the phone, but I wasn't going to wreck my home in somewhere I knew I wanted to keep the phone intact because I wanted to retrieve the numbers. That's why I didn't throw it in the toilet either. Yes, I know it's abnormal to think like that, but my abnormality is one of my best features, my way of thinking. I can't even explain it to people, but I managed to throw the phone over the balcony of the top floor, aiming for the plush carpet below, not the marble hallway. I started crying. I don't recall exactly what he said, but I remember looking into his eyes. Those eyes again. And a part of me believing every word out of his mouth. He was talking about being stressed out and needing an outlet, and how she didn't mean anything to him. He told me the details about their relationship, how it started, and how it was a very callous type situation. And physically, she was holding him down during the time I couldn't. And somewhere in me, I hated myself for understanding. How could I understand some bullshit like that? But a man has needs and I couldn't do shit. I couldn't even suck his dick. I was literally this big fat blob lying in the bed waiting to have a baby. Who could blame him? The sick bitch inside my head said. I'm seeing him throughout the pregnancy having to hold his tongue. Before we would have knockdown dragouts. We go to the wall with our arguments. But for 9 months, this man who has a nasty temper and says exactly what's on his mind was sweet as sugar. And during this time, he's driving up and down the New Jersey Turnpike, notorious for racial profiling. And he just happens to fit the profile. Thug guy in a nice ride. Men like my man are public enemy number one to many cops on the turnpike. And I was lying in the bed back at home, useless, while he was out there holding it down for us, taking care of his business. Kevin started managing me part-time when we were in Philly. He would book some guests and handle some of my appearances before I got pregnant. When I was pregnant and on bed rest, he even arranged for Lisa Left Eye Lopez to come to the house for for a live interview. She came with her boyfriend at the time, and while the studio was doing their thing, they would cut to me and Left Eye from my home. It was a great interview. She was very gracious. Kevin was also going to the clubs and making sure I had the A-list rappers on my show. Philly is not New York, and to get an A-list rapper to roll through early in the morning in Philly was like pulling teeth. Was there a lot of pressure on him? Yes. Did he need a release? Probably. Part of me understood this. The other part knew he needed to find a better release and a better damn excuse than this sorry one. But being in the gossip world, I was also all too familiar with beautiful women who were cheated on for less. The most beautiful woman in the world, Halle Berry, her man talking about being a sex addict. Janet Jackson, allegedly. J-Lo, hell, I was in damn good company. What makes me so special? But after I thought about it, I came to the conclusion that I am special and I didn't deserve this. No woman deserves this. And I hated him with every fiber in my body. And I wanted to kill him. I mean, really kill him. For real. I wanted to kill him more because I was in the process of breaking my number one rule: no cheating. Cheat and I'm gone. I wanted to kill him because I still loved him and didn't want to leave him. I was angry about that. And the excuse was lame. My husband is one of the strongest willed people I know. How could he have gotten weak for the flesh? How could he betray me? How could he betray us? I know other niggas who wanted to look and holler at me, and I never gave any of them as much as a second look. When it came to sex with my husband, I'm down for whatever. I mean, Kevin couldn't find a more willing partner. I was out of commission for about 9 months. Didn't he know that the situation was temporary? How could he do this to me? How could he do this to me? I hired a private detective. I had to know who she was on some other level. At this point, the shit was over, which was why she was calling so much. But I needed to know if she was in love. Was he in love? Were condoms used? Is she pregnant? Was she laying up in the Marriott with him? I don't want to disrespect her and go into details of the answers, but let's just say I was satisfied with all the answers that I got. I realized that this might be an open forum to shout her name and disrespect her. It's not like I have a lot of respect for a woman who wrecks a home. I don't have a lot of respect for a woman who sleeps with a man she knows is married with a child. I don't respect her, but I'm a big enough woman not to disrespect her. She is a non-entity in our lives, and I've learned so much from that experience. I have just moved on. We have moved on. I've matured, and I'm trying to set an example for other women who go through this situation. Don't pick the low road wanting to beat a bitch's ass and put up signs all around her workplace and call up her mother and all of that drama. You have to deal with your man because ultimately it's your man's fault. Plenty of women out there are trifling, but if the man gives in, then it's the man's fault. That's why I'm taking the high road and not disrespecting her. I have tried to understand why he cheated. I understand that sometimes a man just needs a vessel, and you can take that for what it is. In the long run, that was the release that he needed in order for him to come to me laid up in bed with smiles, even at the end of a fucked up day when receipts come up short because motherfuckers are ripping him off because the streets are ugly. At the end of the day, he would come to me with the roast beef sandwich and a smile. And that's what he needed to do to come to me with smiles. Sing to my baby and come to me with pleasant tones. I'll take that. The part of me that wanted to kill him lost to the part of me that loved him and understood him. He explained that it was one girl. I knew her name. I asked him a million questions. After I found out why he did it, I spent weeks being in deep hate and anger toward him. But I thought, better to happen now when I really have to fight for a relationship. I know it sounds crazy. It happened at a time when I couldn't just bail. As you know from my first marriage, I will bail if things aren't right. I will bail on friendships if they aren't going right. I will just bail if I don't like the way things are going. But during this period, while the baby was brand new, I was in no condition to be a single mother, mentally or physically. Physically, being 100 pounds overweight, I really didn't feel like I could go back on the market. I didn't feel like a swarm of men would be stepping over each other to get to me. Nothing makes a woman feel good like being sought after by a bunch of men. I was a new mother and did not know how to be a mother. I was so confused. I was so lost. And for lack of a better way of saying it, I was stuck with Kevin until I could get myself together. By the time I got myself together physically and emotionally, Kevin and I were back together and mentally in sync. So, as far as the affair is concerned, it was the first time it had ever happened to me that I know of. And it was the best time for it to happen to me because I could not bail like I'm prone to do. I'm glad for that because Kevin and I are a stronger couple today, and I am a better mother. This happening at this time forced me to focus on my son. My being a mother kept me sane for my baby. If I wasn't a new mother, I might have dove back into cocaine and lost my mind. If I did not gain 100 pounds, I might have cheated on him to get him back. And if I cheated, I was not cheating with any old dude. I would cheat grandois, the way I do everything. I'm talking about picking up Allen Iverson or some other famous sexy man. You have to cut him where it hurts. If you're going to cut him good. So when he finds out about your affair, you can let him know that he cheated with a hoe and you cheated with Denzel. I wanted to stand by my convictions and leave him, but I couldn't. We have a son, and his name is Kevin Hunter, and my name is Wendy Hunter. I wasn't ready to make that move. Kevin and I were never separated, and we never slept in separate bedrooms throughout the whole ordeal. I believe if you're going to be in it, you're going to be in it. Separations are just free passes to bone whoever you want. You set up your bachelorette apartment, and he sets up his bachelor's apartment, and then what? You all get back together in 6 months? The separation business only drains your pockets and further strains the relationship. Either you're married, for better or worse, or you get a divorce. And no one should sleep on the couch. You can sleep with your back to each other and don't touch, but you're either married or divorced. For me, there's no in between. You either love him or you hate him. My emotions either run hot or cold. I'm not a lukewarm person. Either I'm going to cut off all of my hair or I'm going to have it growing down to my butt crack. There is no in between. Sure, I gave Kevin the silent treatment, and yes, there were plenty of ice cold nights with my back to him. Maybe we didn't speak for days, but I was a mother to my son, and he was a father to his son. We somehow worked it out. Somewhere in Kevin's soulful eyes, those eyes that I looked into on our first date and knew this was one sincere man, I saw that this could be repaired. When a man hurts a good woman, and if he's a really good man, he knows what he's done. Shit happens. He was racing up and down the turnpike doing his part while I'm in bed worried about losing another baby. And guess what? That's on his mind too. All he knows is he's got to be there and strong for his woman. If that's what it took at that particular time, and I stress that particular time because cheating is not acceptable, then I'll take that too. If that's what it took for him to come to me, then all is forgiven. Not forgotten, but forgiven. In order to be able to close the chapter, I had to find out more about her, though. I know my man enough to know that he will not, what he will and will not do. I know him enough to know that if certain things are happening with the situation, I know just how deep it got. I needed to know whether he secretly had another baby somewhere. It would be very easy for him to have two families with me in South Jersey and him in North Jersey all the time. I had to do my own investigations. I had to know. And the way I physically looked was affecting the way I felt. That he had an affair and I was not able to confidently whip off my clothes and whip it on him was driving me crazy. And then to cap that with the baby. I didn't even know how to take care of a baby and was just doing the best I could and wondering if that was enough. Then I have a job where I have to get up at 4 in the morning. All that, and I have a group of friends who would do nothing but gossip from one to the other if I told them about any of it. It was a mess. And get this, the one person who I could actually talk to, the one person who I needed to talk to, my very best friend, was the person who hurt me the most. I was in unfamiliar waters with this one. I just didn't know what to do. It would have been easier if I was getting a divorce. I could just tell everybody what the motherfucker did and be done with it. But I was staying, and I felt like a fool. I'm my own fool, and I didn't want to be judged. I hired a private detective because I needed closure. The very phone that I threw down the stairs, I retrieved that night and jotted down the number that was in there 10 times. I didn't know what I was going to do with the number, but I knew I needed it. I had her first name and a phone number, and I gave that to the private detective. I found him in the yellow pages. I needed to know who this woman was in order to get over this hurdle. And the only thing that would make me walk out for good is if he lied about anything. If he was in love, if she was just as successful at what she does as I am in my career, if she had his baby, please tell me she's a maid at the Marriott. No disrespect to maids, but somehow in there, I would feel better about the situation if she was. Kevin gave me information, but not all that I was asking for. There were certain things that I wanted to know on my own. He knew me too well. He wouldn't give me her last name or any details. That was okay. Thank God I made enough money to get answers for myself. This was a matter of life and death. His life, his death. The private investigator was willing to fly all over, drive all over, and do whatever was needed to get my answers. I had the money, and this is what money is used for. This was about my sanity. A private detective is a wonderful thing. He can find out everything about a person, down to her last period, from a single phone number. He got her home address, her work address, her social security number, her last name. He was able to tell me whether she was married and if she had kids. He even broke down her living situation for me. He did all of this in 30 days, and it cost me about $800, a very small price to pay for my sanity. I knew I had to pay a visit to this woman. I had no idea what I would do when I saw her. I didn't know how I was going to see her, but I knew I would. Part of me knew that going to see her was childish. I knew ultimately Kevin's decision to cheat was on Kevin, but the other part didn't give a damn about that. This woman fucked my husband, knowing he was my husband. He told her who I was. He told her that I was pregnant and couldn't have sex. She knew what was going on. To me, you can explain to a woman all day long, and they can pretend to be in it just for sex, but women are soft and pink. At the end of the day, women, and I don't care what they say, want more. On December 25th, they're not looking just for a gift. They're looking for your time. You cannot carry on a relationship with a married man and not be jealous of the main woman. I was a main woman. I am the wife, and the wife gets everything. I was trying to save our marriage, and I was out of my head with loneliness and with the empty feeling of betrayal. I was out of my fucking head. So one morning after I got off my shift at 10, I made that trip north up the Jersey Turnpike in a rented car. I did not want to be in a recognizable vehicle, and I didn't know if she had been in our vehicles. It was a very white knuckle drive. I was furious the whole ride, which seemed to just fly by. I had the club with me, the anti-theft device I borrowed from my car, just in case we fought. I had never been in a fist fight before, but I knew I needed some backup if I did get in one. I decided to wait for her at her job. I got to her office and watched her leave her building. I knew what she looked like because my private detective had gotten to her office building and somehow gotten into a superficial conversation with her. He took a picture of her with a secret camera. I watched her leave the building from my parked rental car. I never approached her. What was I going to get out of approaching her? A fist fight, probably. That would mean that she got to me. My ultimate goal was to save my family. I loved my husband and I needed to feel like I had personal closure as a woman, closure that he could not give me. As a woman, I needed to know what she looked like in person. Where does she work? Is she a secretary or is she the boss of the whole shit? What does she drive, if she drives at all? Does she weigh 105 pounds or 305 pounds? You want to know all these things. I was satisfied with what I saw, and ultimately speaking, I won. I wasn't there to fight her. I was there to fight myself emotionally and fight to save my family. And I won. I maintained my sobriety throughout this whole ordeal. I thought I might end up being a single mother, and I needed to be on point. I did not think about picking up a drink, a joint, coke, or anything. I was fueled by anger, and I didn't want to run away from this. I needed to confront it. This was a bump in our road. Ultimately speaking, it has made us a stronger couple. It's hard to say, but my husband is a better man because of this. I'm a better woman, a better wife, and a better mother. I'm a better friend. I'm a better radio personality because I relate now to the woman who call up to talk about how their man cheated on them. Kevin never knew what I did that day until now. It's not something I could explain. Since being back in New York, she hasn't contacted me. One of the apprehensions I had about coming back to New York in the market where she lives was having to relive Kevin's past mistake and wonder if the woman would jump up and cause problems for us. But it hasn't happened. And this is why I'm not talking about her in terrible terms. No, it's not that I respect her. And no, it's not that I like her. She is a non entity in my mind. She is my husband's mistake. And this is my forgiveness. And that's the way it is. I feel after going through that in a weird way, it's made me and Kevin a strong unit. And it's made me a strong woman. I don't know what the future holds, but the reality of betrayal by my best friend has brought to the forefront a lot of realities of life that I wasn't familiar with before. But I can honestly say the wound has been healed. We both keep late hours hustling the streets, doing what we have to do for the betterment of our family. When my husband keeps late hours and I'm not with him because I'm a mother and a wife and queen of the radio, and I have to take care of myself, I do not worry about where he is. When he pulls in at 4 in the morning, my mind does not dwell on what bitch he's fucking. I'm not worried that he's coming from some woman's house. I am thankful that he was not racially profiled that night and made it home safely. He knows the deal, and so do I. There are men who learn from their mistakes, and my husband is one of them. There are men who deserve forgiveness, and there are marriages that can survive betrayals. And I never thought about cheating on him as a way to get back at him. What would that prove? That would prove to my son that I am a whore, that I am some sort of a whore. There is a double standard. Men can cheat and come back from it. When women do it, we are branded all kinds of things. I accept that too. So I chose to believe him, trust him, and I chose to stay. I don't know any men who can put it down the way my husband does. I don't mean just physically, I mean all around. He is a special man. I love him to death despite his mistakes. We've moved on. My husband made a mistake, but I never questioned his love for me. He's mine. I won.